I want to do actually a little different kind of thing here. It's like a series I started called Film Favorites, like just favorite films, talking about them. But I've only done one in the series, A Simple Plan. Which, if you haven't seen A Simple Plan, you could catch my like drunken hour rant on it, or not rants, but hour long like whatever on it on YouTube. This one I'll do definitely shorter, but I just wanted to do another one. It's that time of year. It's October. It's Halloween time. Big horror fan growing up, and I want to talk about a little bit about my favorite horror movie of all time, Halloween. John Carpenter's Halloween from 1978. I could go into all the details on this. I know so much about this film and the whole series. I know a ridiculous amount about this series. Um, it doesn't have the same impact on me as I was like growing up, but just in general, why I think it's great and stuff like that. Um, I remember when I was a little kid, for some reason, I was always drawn to horror, and a lot of kids are, and they carry it into adulthood if they really love it. But something about the horror genre when you're a kid, it's more effective on you. And I remember seeing Halloween at my grandma's house, and my aunt showed it to me. My aunt was much younger than my mom. My mom was probably like 20 something at the time, and my aunt was still in high school, and she's popped in the VHS of Halloween because she knew I was in the horror movies, and my parents were cool with it. I mean, I was like 5 years old or something, but my parents were cool with it because I would just bug the shit out of them. Like, I loved horror movies, you know. And I just remember like watching it and just falling in love with it. Like every time I would go to my grandma's house, I'd make them let me watch the movie because they owned the VHS. I'd like oh, pop in Halloween. When I was a little kid, it was like Halloween, Gremlins, Die Hard, and Terminator. Obsessed. But this was definitely, when it comes to horror, this is like my main obsession. I went into like Nightmare and Elm Street and Friday the 13th later, and I love them too. Like, I watched them a lot, but even still, even then, like, it was always Halloween that I loved the most. Um, I remember too, like, my mom at some point, she's like, "I'm gonna get you off these horror movies. I'm gonna show you Nightmare on Elm Street. And that's gonna scare the shit out of you." And it was scary. Like, parts of it were scary, but I stuck with it. I loved it too. It just made it like my love for horror just kept growing. And Halloween just is always sat at the top. I think a lot of times when I would go over to my grandma's house, I would watch this flick, but like after I'd seen it a bunch of times, it was all about watching the last 15 minutes over and over, like the climax with the chase and stuff between Michael and what the heck, Jamie Lloyd, is that her name in it? See, now I'm gonna sound like an idiot because I don't know her name, but I think it was Jamie Lloyd was or no, I'm stupid. Laurie Strode. It's not on the back of the box, but it just popped in my head. Laurie Strode. That's who Jamie Lee Curtis played. Just like the whole last 15 minutes between them was awesome. But there's so many things about this movie, and this was like this kind of, there was Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There were other things before this. There was Last House on the Left, I think, came out a little bit before it. But Halloween really kind of kicked off the whole slasher craze that went all the way through the 80s and into the 90s. And it's weird because it is a slasher film, but it's so different from like the other slasher films that you got that followed it. Um, but this really, it kicked off a genre that was very strong in the 80s, and it's well respected by critics. Uh, critics love it. I know that like Roger Ebert compared it to Psycho. Both him and Gene Siskel really loved it. Um, when I was a kid, what I really loved about it was just creepy, and uh, the last 15 minutes were so exciting with them chasing each other down. But as I get older and I look at it back now, I could like look at it more subjectively, and there's just still things that are just great about it from a fan of film. Like John Carpenter is a filmmaker, and he used like his love of film in this. Very stylish, lots of suspense. He wrote a great score for it. It's got a slow build, but there's always a little bit of artistry going on with it. Not a lot of blood, not a big kill count, but it's a scary horror film. It's scary, moody, atmospheric horror film. Um, made on a low budget. But yeah, it's still very high quality. The score, I mean, come on, the score alone. Who doesn't love the score to Halloween? Do 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 do. Or the do 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 do. The mask, the William Shatner mask that they remade. I think the mask is like the thing that really drew me to Michael Myers and made him stand out the way he looks. It's just the shape. It's this scary, faceless figure. Um, if you've never seen Halloween, I'll say what it's about real quick. This guy in 1963, a little kid. He's a little kid in 1963. He goes into his house and they do this awesome point of view. It was the first of that too, which slasher movies copied forever. Point of view shot, like the camera is Michael Myers. He's a little kid. He's like outside of his house. He's stalking his sister, like looking through the windows and shit. And he like his sister and her boyfriend, they go up to like have sex or something. And he sneaks in the house. He grabs a knife and he kills her. And then he gets put into a insane asylum. And then 15 years later, in 1978, now he's a grown man, and he breaks out of the insane asylum, and it's the night he came home. He goes back to Haddonfield, Illinois, to kill teenagers. It's very simple, and every slasher film really is pretty simple. It's let's get some kids together and let's kill them. But it works. It works for what it is. And here it's done with a lot of, talent behind it. You have John Carpenter. You have Jamie Lee Curtis, Donald Pleasance. Just incredible casts, actors. The music, the direction is just amazing. And, it's a cut above other slasher films that followed. It didn't need to gore or anything to make it scary. What was scary about Halloween was the suspense. And when you look back at it now, like after it gets going, when it's like Halloween night and Michael is like stalking the kids and trying to kill them, if you watch it, he's in almost every scene, even though he's not the subject of every scene. Michael is lurking in the background almost everywhere. And like John Carpenter used the widescreen to do it in a great way, where like you'll see his mask in the corner of the screen, outside the window. He's in the background. And it's a fun Halloween movie, and I don't mean that as a serious Halloween. I mean it's a fun movie to watch around Halloween. It just captures what's fun about horror in general. It captures, like what is creepy about horror films. It wasn't about the violence, it wasn't about the gore, and I enjoy gore and all that stuff too. But I was definitely in the Friday the 13th franchise. I enjoyed Nightmare on Elm Street movies, but this was just, there was something special about Halloween, where it was just creepy. And they didn't explain it much. Like it's just this guy he escapes out of a mental institution, and he goes back to Haddonfield to kill some teenagers. Now you learn in later movies that Laurie Strode was his sister, and this and that. But That wasn't planned from the start. And then they go into all this crazy shit about him being part of a cult, and then they had to reboot the series since that was so fucking stupid. They try to explain him later on, but Halloween 1978 does not try to explain it. It's just he is evil. He's this unspeakable evil. There's no explanation to him, and that's it. You know, he's the boogeyman. I like how they did that. Now, he wasn't like crazy supernatural in this one. You know, throughout most of it, you take him as he's just like this crazy killer who escaped a mental hospital, and he's just killing everybody. But near the end, there is like this element of maybe he's more than human. And you have Donald Pleasance, who is the Dr. Loomis, who's trying to track him down because he knows how dangerous Michael Myers is. So you have Michael Myers like preying on these teenagers, you know, Laurie Strode and her friends, you know, PJ Souls, the girl who played Nancy. And then you have Donald Pleasance just looking for them, trying to stop everything with the sheriff. But they never explain anything. You just have like, there's like a great scene with Donald Pleasance where he's like, you know, I watched that boy for 15 years. For 7 years I tried to reach him. Another 7 years I tried to keep him, you know, locked up because I knew that there was nothing inside of him. He had the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. Just amazing. And it was cool that they didn't have to explain it. It's just like, this is the ultimate evil, and he's out there and he'll kill you. And it was a nice spin at the end. Brilliant ending. After this long, exciting climax of chasing Laurie Strode and her, you know, jabbing at him, getting him in the eye, and the closet scene when she gets in the closet, it's brilliant. She like stabs him in the eye with the hanger. And he's on the floor, and she like runs out and she's crying. It's great composition. Like, she's sitting there in the foreground, in the background you see Michael Myers like that. It's just freaking awesome. And then at the very end, Loomis finally tracks him down and comes to the rescue. Even though Laurie Strode, which I like in the character, she was tough. She fought back for herself. He comes to the rescue. He shoots Michael Myers. He shoots him 6 times. And Myers falls off the balcony of this house. And Laurie Strode's like, was that the boogeyman? And Dr. Loomis, as a matter of fact, that was. And then he walks to the window, he walks to the window, he looks over the balcony, and Michael Myers is gone. And then they play like this fucking, the eerie score, and they're showing shots of everywhere that Michael Myers has been, and everywhere like the film has taken place, and it's just empty shots with no one in it. So brilliant. I love those final shots of the film with the music. Just a great film. I might watch this right now. It's so good, man. It is a slow build compared to modern films, and compared to like some other slashers, where it's not like crazy fun all the time. It's not crazy like gore. There's no gore in it. It's almost a bloodless film. Like, the only blood I really remember seeing is when Michael Myers is like, Laurie Strode is standing near a door frame and he sneaks up behind her. Another brilliant shot. The door frame behind her is black, and slowly his face comes into it. Like, you see his face, and he like stabs her in the arm. You see a little bit of blood on her arm. But I'm running out of time. I want to make this in one video, but basically, I really love Halloween. If you're a fan of horror films, if you're growing up and you haven't seen Halloween, you need to see it. You need to have a little patience and stuff, but you're gonna see how it influenced a whole genre. If you've grown up on Halloween like I have, if you see it, you know exactly what I'm talking about, why this movie is awesome. Unless you're a hater of the series, which I know there's people that are haters of the series, but I'm not one of them. I actually like a lot of the sequels to it, especially Halloween 2 and 4 and H2O. Those, and Halloween 3. Maybe I'll do a video on Halloween 3 sometime, but I love Halloween 3. Anyways, a classic horror film, must see for this Halloween.